I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. Because this is Airwindows SampleDelay. Now there's not all that much point in doing lots of demonstrating on this one, and I'll tell you why. Here is the SampleDelay. You can see that it has a setting for ms, milliseconds, that goes to 100 milliseconds, as you heard. We've got a setting for individual samples that goes to 10 samples, which is not necessarily a lot. Then we've got a subsample that goes to 1 sample. And I can play everything. And we'll adjust the subsample. You can't really hear that very well, can you? Because even in a stereo mix, if you were adjusting a stereo pair and you're moving one of them by less than 1 sample, that's not a lot. This is why when I did the first playing of it, I used the millisecond control and I pushed it to 100 milliseconds. That is a lot more obvious. And it's really obvious what's going on there. We do have other settings though. For instance, we've got inverse to wet. Obviously with no delay, full wet is the same as the middle, but we can also flip the phase of this. Or we could do about halfway. And if we do about halfway, what we've got is something where now we have a very simple echo, because we do allow the dry signal to come through. Or we can have a small amount, or none. Or you can now hear that 10 samples, even on this 96K recording, is still enough that you can hear what's happening. So we can do a sort of manual flanger if we want. Or set it just right. And we can use the samples control to turn it into a kind of a high pass. Or the subsample control, and now we can kind of hear it. Here, let's. So again, this is dry signal and inverted delay. With no delay on here, we get nothing. If we put a delay on, it turns into a sort of sample flange. With samples, we have a more obvious flange effect. And as we start doing subsample, you can start hearing it bring in that 1 sample delay. And this is the kind of thing that you'll be doing if you're using a sample delay, for instance, for having multiple microphones in a guitar cabinet, and you're trying to position them relative to each other. Kind of similar to what I can do with the Golem plugin. Or you could be having this on a single microphone, like a snare mic or something, and you're trying to position it inside a mix of other drum microphones. And you might want to move it backwards by a certain number of samples so that it, against other sounds, will line up properly, because as your drums are being picked up by multiple microphones, if there's two microphones on an individual drum, it can cause this kind of effect. So you'll hear a sort of flangey artifact, and maybe you don't want that. It doesn't have to be a really obvious thing like this obvious delay, which would be a real big difference in microphone positioning. It could be something where it's a very small difference in microphone positioning. And one thing you can do if that's happening to you is you take the two microphones and use one of them and throw it on full invert using sample delay, at which point, if you have both of them playing, you will hear something that sounds a lot like this. And then if you get it to line up, and then flip the phase of the one that you're adjusting from full invert to full wet, your combination winds up being lined up perfectly. And enough of the audio for now, because that's not as fun of a toy as some of our other things that we can do with plugins. But that's what you might do with a sample delay, beyond just trying to use it as an echo unit, which it's not going to really want to do. That's how you can line stuff up. Or you can do other things. For instance, one of the things that you might want to do with a backbeat, which is your drums going along and then you've got your snare and maybe you've sequenced it, or maybe you're firing it with a synthesizer or, a Eurorack unit or whatever, and you haven't done anything with the timing of it to cause it to swing and feel right. What you might do is throw a sample delay on just your snare. And if you do that, you can sit the snare back into the pocket, or indeed do that with any other thing that needs to be on a backbeat and not be just too aggressive, like very 80s, everything like da-da-da-da-da-da. You can sit stuff back into the pocket by using a sample delay, and you can use a sample delay with fine controls like samples to just select something. Like if you have instruments going on, I wonder whether I should try to make that happen. Let's see if we can't. Drag it over into guitar and open that up a little bit. If we turn this guitar up a little bit, that guitar is sitting in a certain place in the groove, such as it is. If we delayed it, we can throw it completely off, right? Or have it be two echoes. But if we're not doing that, and instead we're using the samples control, we can sit that guitar farther back in the groove. Particularly if it was just playing a backbeat, that's something that you can do to make it sort of relax. Let's make it relax even more. And it's as simple as that. So that's a way that you can edit grooves using a delay that's designed to give you control over fine detail in timing. And you got, again, milliseconds for much longer delays. You've got samples for if you want to pick out a particular hesitation without having to slide stuff around in the screen or anything like that. You just throw that on there, and you have subsample if your need to adjust things gets really, really fine-grained. And because it's a sample delay, the sound of it is completely and utterly transparent. Like if you throw an integer number of samples in the delay on there, it does nothing to the sound whatsoever. It's just passing the input value through. So it is a effective way to fool around with that kind of thing. And I hope you like it. I am keeping busy doing its various things, like learning how to work with the version 4 of the Godot engine. And yeah, it's been a weird week. We had a big storm and the power went out for more than a day. So I found myself at 2 o'clock in the morning dragging stuff out of my freezer and putting it outside in the snow. And it wasn't quite freezing outside, but it was cold enough that I could buy myself a little time to not have everything in my freezer die and rot. And so that was cool. It was less cool when it took about half a day for my internet connection to come back to life after the power outage. But yeah, it's been quite a week. And I also had a weird live stream, because on the live stream, what happened was my cameras were all totally broken for no good reason. And when I powered up the laptop again, I found that it was happier and worked this time. So I'm thinking the thing that I'm learning about it is if you run OBS and try to do a live stream, and you plug your laptop in and connect it up first before getting the camera working, or the main camera working, and then you lose the camera and then you lose the laptop, there is no fixing it until you restart the computer completely. But I did, so I should be able to do a live stream. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to work on, but we're going to think up something to do as far as further stuff for the plugin queue going forward. We have not yet got to the point where I am buying a Bricasti reverb, but I have put a little work into my test bed for how I'm going to make one of my reverbs sound like that. And another purpose of working with the Godot engine is I still need to do a test bed for measuring out the way where patterns of echo returns combine with each other, because I'm convinced that that can give me a better perspective on how I can arrange the various delay times inside a 5x5 householder feed-forward matrix. Which is to say, I think I can make my reverb sound a lot better, and I'm looking forward to giving it a shot. And I'll be sharing some of that work with people on Monday in a live stream for the usual 3 hours, and we'll see how that goes. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.